Good afternoon. I'm Chicken Johnny. You're out in the yard with Chicken Johnny, and at the beginning of the process of putting together these videos, I said that I was going to show you the tools that we use in the garden, and I haven't done that, so I'm going to do that now. First, though, I want to talk about why we're using machinery to do our gardening. And the reason is, I have a desire to garden a much larger area than I am now. In fact, I'd eventually like to maybe farm on about a 10-acre location. We're presently using 2.5 acres, and we're using all of the equipment and techniques that we would use on a 10-acre farm. So our production is actually less than it would be if, say, we went ahead and gardened on 2.5 acres trying to get the maximum amount of planting space. We're not doing that because if we're going to do a larger garden, we're going to need to be able to do it with machinery. We're going to need to be able to do it in a production method. So not only am I buying the equipment that I would need for that, I'm also attempting anyway to learn all of the techniques. Farming a large acreage begins with the ability to prepare the soil. This is a 3-bottom plow. It connects to the 3-point hitch using the top link and then these lower control arms attach here, and then I believe you can see it right over there. And that allows me to raise and lower the entire plow. Now the top link allows me to adjust the point at which the front plowshare and the rear plowshare hit the ground. And you want them to hit the ground at approximately the same time because you want to have the same depth once they go in. Now they're going to hit the ground. The first share is going to hit first, then the second, then the third, and it's going to pull its way into the ground. But once it's in the ground, you want it to be level. You want to be making each furrow the same depth. Now in front of each of these is a coulter. And but what happens is when these go into the ground, see how that pivots like that? It will eventually find that point where it's going to cut right in front of the shear. And it's going to cut through any residue like grass, or if I've planted a cover crop, maybe it'll be cowpeas or something of that nature. It'll cut through and allow that shear to, the shear as it goes through will pick up the soil and flip it over so the bottom becomes the top and the top becomes the bottom. Now I'd have to measure it. I don't recall for sure, but I believe that this is a 14-inch 3-bottom plow. And by 14-inch, it means that the distance from the tip of the plowshare down here all the way up to the top of the moldboard is 14 inches. So then if you look at this coulter, from the lowest point of the coulter that can go into the ground up to the top is 7 inches. So a 14-inch shear, a 7-inch coulter, or 7 inches of cutting with the coulter, and you get a furrow that's approximately 7 inches deep. Now I'm going to show a little bit of bottom plowing in this video, and you'll see that we've actually set the plow up to go a little deeper. It's not a good idea, but it is what we needed to do in this particular case. So this plow, if you look at it from the back, it's cutting 3 furrows at the same time. And this top bar across here needs to be relatively level to the ground as the shears pull through, so that we're digging the same depth in each of those shears, each of these mold boards. The plowshare is this piece down at the bottom, and then this is the mold board. And we want that plowshare to sit flat in the soil, and then that allows the mold board to roll it over. This is the control arm, And the reason why this is the adjustable control arm, I should say, is because it's got this adjustment up top that allows me to raise or lower this control arm. That control arm on this tractor stays in the same position. And then this one is fully adjustable on the fly. I can just adjust it up or down as I'm going through the field. That one can be adjusted, but I've got it adjusted and I never have to readjust it. This one adjusts to allow the tractor to sit deeper on one side because, and this gets complicated, you'll see when we get into the field, this tire is going to be lower than that tire. And therefore this share, like when we're sitting on solid ground, this share is going to be slightly higher than that shear when it's completely down in the ground. I'm not going to even really try to explain that completely right now because it's somewhat complicated. So on my tractor, if you look here, there are two places to connect this control arm. This top section here, and I'm pinned into this top hole, and then this lower hole is down here. Now, if I were pulling a rototiller, for example, I'd want to be connected into this lower section. Or if I was laying tubing in the ground, like putting in my drip tape or putting in an irrigation line, I'd want to connect to here, because this is just a stagnant connection. But if I connect up here, it functions as a lever, pulls against this hydraulic piston, or it's a spring-loaded piston, and it pulls against the three-point hitch. So if I'm plowing and the ground becomes really hard to go through, instead of stalling out my tractor or spinning my tires, it will actually slightly raise my plow until the resistance on this draft mechanism eases up. So it's really a pretty complicated setup. Now I set the level of the plow using these two levers over here. Let me get in a position where you see that better. So these two levers on the tractor, they set my depth, and they also allow me to adjust for draft. So this lever here is the draft lever, and I set this at the depth that I want it to be. Once I've set that lever there, I don't have to deal with it again. I don't have to move that lever. I raise the plow and lower the plow back down using this lever. As long as this lever passes this lever now controls. This lever will never allow the tractor to drop below the setting of this lever. So this is your adjustment, and then this is your operating lever in the field. Now, if these stickers weren't off, this would say draft lever, but those stickers have worn out on me. The idea is that I want to have the field relatively stable throughout. And so by just setting this one lever one time, leaving it there for the entire operation of plowing the field, I can raise and lower the plow at the headlands or at the end of each pass right with this lever here. Okay. I'm going to show you some footage of this plow operating, and we're going to do that right now. I'll be back after the video of the plow going through the ground, and we'll talk about what the next stage is. The next thing we're going to do is use the Field Cultivator. Now this Field Cultivator was cut down from a much larger cultivator, and a 3-point connection was attached to it for the tractor. And I'm going to hook this up to my tractor, take it out in the field. I actually have to attach 2 more sweeps in the back. You'll see that this has, well, chisel points in the front is what these are called. They're on C-tines. That's what this piece here is called. And then these chisel points will break the ground initially. I've got 1 more chisel point that I'm going to put in the middle. And then I've got another sweep that goes here. And then this sweep comes over a little bit, and this sweep comes over a little bit. And then there's a set of crumblers that goes on the back of this. In another video, I'll set this all up and take it out into the field. But I just wanted to show you how we break the ground and plow initially. Now, the idea is that this will take all of the seeds from this year and send them down to the bottom. I know it'll bring up seeds from the bottom up, and so we're really not doing this to deplete our seed bank. We've got some other plans for depleting the seed bank. The process that we're going through now is more to break the ground up. It really is primarily for insect control, because insects go down into the soil, they build nests. Well, we want to break those nests up. So we're going to redo the plowing that we just did. We're going to probably redo it again this fall. If not, we'll definitely 3-bottom in the spring 1 more time. And when the time comes, I'm sure that we'll show you that. The purpose of the 3-bottom plow is to flip the soil over. And what it does is it mixes all of those nutrients in. Now, there's a lot of people who believe in no-till farming, and there are some advantages to no-till farming. I'm not going to go over the advantage of no-till, but I do want to go over the advantages of heavy tilling. Heavy tilling takes the insects and hopefully it destroys their habitat so that they won't come back next year. It will do a little bit of damage to some beneficials, I understand that. But if you're doing it, if your timing is correct in when you're bottom plowing, you shouldn't do a whole lot of damage. No-till is a much better practice in areas that have less fertile soil. Our soil is extremely fertile. I have 24% organic material in the top 14 inches of soil. So I'm not even bringing clay up. I'm not even bringing sand up. You'll see just a few spots in that field. If we walk through it, you'll see a few spots where there's a little bit of clay and a few spots where there's a little bit of sand. And I can tell you that that's probably because I did some digging there for some other reason and brought some clay up, because there is very little clay in this soil. You'll see very little clay. I can dig 30 inches down without hitting clay. So we have different problems in the Midwest, and particularly in northern Illinois. The ground is extremely fertile here. We can grow, things grow pretty easily. That's not the problem. The problem is keeping the weeds out. I'm Chicken Johnny. This has been a fun time for me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope maybe you've learned something. Maybe it's not something you're going to use, but maybe you weren't aware of how a 3-bottom moldboard plow worked, and maybe now you know. I'm Chicken Johnny, and Mitzer Shem. I'll see you again. Eat your vegetables.